Well, George, man, you've been here at Athey Creek for a while. One of the first questions I wanted to ask was, how'd you get here? You know, what's your story as far as coming to Athey Creek?
I was searching around Portland somewhat for a church to go to, and a friend of mine, through another friend, just said that there was a pastor that just came up from Medford that was a pretty good bench presser.
Huh, okay.
And so
You were talking about Tad, of course, right?
yeah. Is Tad here? So I thought I would just explore it, since I was just kind of looking for a place to go anyway, a church to attend. And as it turned out, that was in 1998, and we've been here ever since. Brett married Shelley and I. Actually, not all that many years after that, in about 3 years. So just found a home to stick to.
Yeah. When before those years of coming to Athey, what were some of those experiences that really drew you to the Lord, to Athey Creek, that sort of brought you from where you're at and to where you're at now?
Well, I started a logging company when I was pretty young. I was 24, and it occupied me totally, just about, I would say, and it left little room for much of anything else. And so, but I was always looking, and I could see people of faith, or people that had the Lord in their life. They had a different take to them. They had a clearer look, a spiritual awakening inside of them, and it took me a long time to figure that out, but I finally did.
Yeah. In those years, you know, it's no surprise. I mean, you've been clean from alcohol for about how long now?
32 years.
32 years. So walk through us what sort of drew you into that, and then how you were really able to have success for these 32 years.
I suppose I just looking for something to fill that hole in my heart, and it was readily accessible, and I didn't have to learn anything other than how to drink. Mm-hmm. And I became good at it, and then you know, and it got out of hand. I got a letter from one of the mills that I logged for that said if I don't go into treatment center, a specific one, because I had been to 2 already,
okay,
that they would not issue me another contract. So I was extremely irritated, yeah, okay, let's say, by that, but I did follow up on it, and that's really where it all started. And oddly enough, it was in the treatment center that a priest talked to me, which, you know, you can say what you want, you know, but it was, I guess, just a taste of the Bible,
sure,
and of how good things could be.
Sure,
yeah.
Sure. There's a quote that I saw as I was, you know, studying on George Nelson. The quote that I think you had said was, "I gave up one bar for another," and maybe walk through us that transformation of, you know, giving up alcohol, and how, you know, weightlifting and going into some of that stuff, I don't know, transformed you for a little bit.
When I was at this particular treatment center, it was in Palm Springs, so it wasn't bad. Mm-hmm. And it was they had a little gym, a small gym, and I hadn't worked out before, and so but they allowed me to go there. They were curious of me because I was the first logger, let's call it, that had ever been to that particular center, and it was so they were kind of keeping an eye on me. So they put me in the gym, and there was a young man, was 18, skinny, and he could bench more on a machine than I could. And I kind of just didn't do bench while I was there after that. But I came home, and once I came home, I started an exercise regime to take the place of alcohol. Once I hit a bench press of 300 pounds, he said, you know, I think you could do okay in a master's meet. And so I did one, and went up to Washington, up to by Seattle, and placed third in my division and stuff. But I got the bug, and there was guys there that I kind of took a bead on and said,
Okay.
I'll get you.
Coming for you. I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
So George, at your prime, I know all of us guys here are just curious, you know, at your prime.
60.
60? So we've got a ways for the rest of us to get to our prime.
Yeah.
At your prime, what were you lifting? What was it that you were?
The most I did in the gym, and it was my gym, but was 640. And that was an accident. I was kind of irritated with my liftoff guy on my workout, and we had 6 plates on each side, and he asked, well, what do you want now? And I just said, I don't care. And so he just loaded it, and I didn't pay attention to it, and it went up. So you never know.
Yeah.
You know, when everything goes right, you can lift a lot.
Yeah.
And to hit I started actually breaking the world record was at 425 when I first broke it, and I moved it up to 615.
Is that still holding?
Yes.
Right. So you've got
two,
what?
I have 2 holding right now.
2 holding left. Yeah. Okay.
They've held for 13 years now.
Okay. Is there any sign of them being broken by anybody?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Crossing your fingers. Yeah.
I know, that's why I have to lift a little bit. But that's back a ways too. I was 13 years younger,
Okay.
which that's not that much.
That's not that much.
No.
So George, you've got world records still holding. It's funny how with guys, it seems like the bench is really what sort of solidifies us as a man.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas if you aren't, then you're less of a man. But I think about these world records and all these things that you've done. Are those things still fulfilling as maybe they were back in your prime?
No, it goes away. It's in fact it's rewarding for an instant. There's no long term. It's fun to look back at some of the scrapbooks and stuff like that and have some memories.
Sure.
But for fulfillment, I mean, it's the Lord's the only way that's truly going to be. And you can realize that, and it's nice to have things like other things that you've done in your life that you can say, hey, it's great, but that's then and this is now.
So, I guess thinking about that, alcohol being that first void, the attempt to fill that void, and then weightlifting sort of taking the place of that. How would you say the transition from maybe weightlifting to where you're at now, leading a church here at Athey Creek and being one of the governing elders, what would you say the transformation or the role shift has been for that?
Well, one thing that shifted it probably more than anything is I married Shelley, and we had 2 wonderful kids. Once we got married and let's say just settled down, I just changed my direction. I wasn't a governing elder here, in the beginning. Sure. Of course not. I don't know why Brett picked me, but some time ago he did, and it's just been heart filling. And there's a reason that in order for me to have the Lord work in my life, I've got to, or for me not to be the wrong guy, I need to be around these people, you people. This is, and there's not such a thing as really too much.
Thinking about that idea of accountability, surrounding yourself with good godly guys, pointing back to this idea of addiction, of needing to fill our souls with something. What are some things that you would encourage guys who are in the thick of maybe alcoholism, pornography, addiction to medications, a lot of these things? How would you encourage them to get out of that slump, whether it's through you finding accountability or whatever else? Maybe give us some tips.
Well, I think accountability is a big thing, but I also think that a guy can put what I call hurdles in front of bad things. You just, in other words, you just shore yourself up and you don't go near it. It's like when Brett talks about how bad can I be as a Christian, right on the edge of the fence.
Sure, yeah.
How bad can I be and still be saved?
Yeah.
In trying to stay sober or staying sober takes maybe a little more effort than that. It takes, you need to, or I needed to put obstacles to keep me away from the things I shouldn't be near. And that's not that hard. It's the key, though, I believe, is being around godly men. One of the things that I was told that aids me and it helps me telling other guys about addictions is I imagine a giant anaconda or python, and it's right here. Its head is right here behind me, and when I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do, and I don't have any distractions with drugs, alcohol, and anything like that, both eyes are shut. And you know what a snake eyes looks like when they're shut? It's just a screen that comes down over. If I were to go by a bar or something like that, and I look, and I keep going, that big snake's eyelid just opens up a little bit, and that's the one right there that's after me. And if I can keep both his eyes shut, we're all good. That helped me for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, it gets easier. As time goes on, you get, you know, I remember thinking, man, if I listen to someone speak that's got a year, and I'm going, wow, they've been a year.
Yeah.
And then there's 5 years, and then there's 10 years, and you know, life goes on, and you change how you are and how you think.
Maybe talk to those guys who aren't at the 32-year mark right now, and they've gone 5 years, and then the snake eyes open, and they got taken up, or they went 7, 10. So maybe talk to the situation of those guys who they've fallen back into it.
Yeah,
and they've relapsed, and it's hard to feel. It's almost worse than when they're. So maybe talk to that. And
a lot of my friends, in fact, most of my friends, all slipped. They call it. That's what it's called, and I think it's like 3% that don't. It doesn't mean that they don't get sober again. It just means that they slipped, and sometimes the slip lasts for who knows how long. But that's where the guarding of yourself and the hurdles and the things that you put in the way of you. You don't really put things in the way of alcohol or the bad stuff or the drugs. You got to put it in your way, because it's too close to those things, and you can get too close to those things if it's not. So you got to have the hurdle back a ways.
Sure. You know, I think what you're talking about, it really just embodies that verse in Proverbs 16 where it says, there's a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. And I think our way of encouraging other guys is hopefully seeing that way of death instead of this enticement that's going to fulfill their soul. It really is this snake. It's really this way of death. But we just get tricked into thinking, oh, this is what's going to fulfill us.
It's and it's not just alcohol or it's not just drugs. Our minds kind of can trick us and say, well, you can be a little bit. No, we can't.
Not even a little bit. If you had to do it a different way, like if there was the ideal path for you to take, would you still have gone through all these things, still have gone through the addiction, still have gone through all that stuff to be where you're at now?
This is the most rewarding. This, just being in having the Holy Spirit backing me up, and life is just, there's not uncertainty because Jesus has me covered.
Yeah, amen. Hey, George, it's been a real pleasure just getting to hear from you and hear, where the Lord's taking you. Appreciate all your insight, and thanks for all you do. Appreciate it.